Am I the only one that thinks it's odd that Big 12 football media days is in Las Vegas and not in Dallas? I am shocked by it.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a departure from what we as college football fans know. I mean, it feels like, hey, the Pac-12's dead, so someone took their place. That's what that feels like for sure.
Yeah. And I think is, oh, wait, we got to change that. It's today.
It is.
It's today. Fire the graphics guy. Yeah, I think it's really interesting because it feels like, and this is a 2-year thing, remember, it feels like the Big 12 is kind of ceded control of Dallas, if you will, to the SEC. That's what this feels like. And I think it's just is it a coincidence? Certainly not. Is Las Vegas a central part now of the Big 12 footprint? I don't know. It's an interesting, is it a land grab? I have no idea.
Well, I think everyone got all bent like over the summer about these conferences. When realignment was at its height, and all this was taking place, everyone was like, "Oh, well, the Big Ten's moving west, and the SEC's moving west, and the Big 12," and it's like, I don't know if it's the Big 12 trying to take control necessarily of the West, but the reality is they picked up their fair share of teams on the western portion of the country, so. But by the way, Las Vegas is a hell of a place to do a media day. I mean, it's got everything you need. So it's also just on its face a great spot to do it.
Yeah, and I think Allegiant's a beautiful place. There's no, I mean, it's a wonderful stadium. Like, there's no question about that. This is about the prominence and the importance of the city of Dallas, which we all know belongs to SMU. I think this is about the state of Texas. And again, I know that I'm the only one that believes this. Football in the state of Texas is critical for the Big 12. And I just continue to point out, you look at Texas and OU, who we're going to talk about in a minute, going to the SEC. Huge loss in the state of Texas. Where's Texas A&M? Well, Texas A&M is now in the SEC, as they have been for a minute. But that's a huge loss in the state of Texas. Now, do you have Houston? Do you have Tech? Do you have TCU? Do you have? Of course you do. Of course you do. But when we talk about Baylor, why do you think? Why is Baylor such a prominent figure in the health and well-being of the Big 12?
Well, and it's a classic SEC strategy, right? I mean, obviously, the SEC has never been a conference that's got a bunch of teams in one state. They're much more of the, hey, we have the best of the best in each state, and that's what they have in Texas. You've got the biggest and best team in that state representing the SEC. And I do think, if you think about just even what we talked about yesterday about the college football playoff, like there are expectations for Texas in the SEC. I mean, again, we don't have to go deep into it, but obviously Texas's talent and what they were able to do last year and now the move to the SEC, like it's going to be, there's a lot on the line for Sark this year. And obviously it goes without saying, Sark's history in the SEC is well documented. So obviously he's going to have something to prove as well. And I think, I don't know what the long-term mission per se of, the SEC is with Texas, because you have Texas and ultimately.
But isn't that the point?
Yeah. I mean, you're controlling one of the biggest states in college football. So, the Big 12 moving out to Vegas. Yeah, I guess it's a departure because the biggest team, the number one team, the headliner team in your conference is now in the SEC. So maybe that's why they did it.
But to me, it's about talent. It's about brand. It's about scope and size. I think the very fact that the Big 12 is not having their media day at AT&T Stadium in Dallas, it's a huge mistake. I think it's a miss. I think you have to, and again, it's not about Las Vegas. Las Vegas is a great town, a great entertainment mecca. I totally understand that. I understand the BYUs, the Utahs, which have a massive footprint in Vegas. Arizona State and Arizona, which have a massive footprint in Las Vegas. San Diego State. Oh, wait, they didn't get their pro rata. Anyway, my point is, you have a lot of pull in that town. But does having your media day there change that? It doesn't. Look at the announcement that Utah is going to play a kickoff game there, and you already own that town. That's already your footprint.
Right.
What you don't own anymore is the state of Texas. That's the biggest question. What conference owns the state of Texas? It's without question, it's the SEC.
Well, can the Big 12 get it back? I mean, if Texas Tech and all those teams we talk about seemingly every week on the show, if those teams were to take a step forward and to become more relevant in the college football playoff, could you eventually take it back? I don't know. But the reality is, it's much easier to see Texas continuing to dominate than Texas Tech taking some huge step forward. And that's what has to change for the Big 12.
And I go back to 8-ball at Baylor not being fired. I go back to Houston with Dana and that train wreck. I look at Sonny Dykes at TCU. I know, again, I'm the only one because everybody calls me an idiot every time I say this. TCU is a central figure in the success or failure of the Big 12. They are. It's the Metroplex. It's Dallas. It's TCU, man.
Facts.
Like that's a huge part of the success of the Big 12. But you're never going to succeed. Houston, and again, I know everybody tells me I'm an idiot. Houston's a central figure in the success or failure of the Big 12. That is a massive metropolis in Houston that can be difference making. They've got to win games. You've got to win games at Baylor. You've got to win games at Texas Tech.
Well, and I think if you're the Big 12 at the conference level and you're looking at the market that is Houston, I mean, I think you could take some notes from the success of the Texans this past year, and you can see just how powerful that fan base can be when their team is good. And so, yes, has Houston, historically been this juggernaut? No. But if Houston were to be 8-9 wins good at some point, that'd be nice. That would be really helpful.
Is Houston this season going to play a game of consequence?
No, probably not. Probably not. Now, will they wreck some people's seasons? Will they do better in this game or that game than they probably should? Yeah, I think they're capable of that.
Maybe.
I think they're capable of that, but I don't think that they're going to be in a leverage situation. And for them, that's unfortunate.
And again, I just point to our friends in West Texas. Joey, boys,
get the job done.
There are expectations, and I think it's a critical day. I think that when you look at what we need the goods from Brett Yormark, because I think this guy, as commissioner of the Big 12, is very close to one of the most influential men in college sports.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that if Brett Yormark continues to be on brand and on message, and I have no reason to think he won't be, Brett Yormark would be wise to keep 3 letters out of his mouth the next 2 days. A, C, and C. Keep it out of your mouth. Focus on what you have. You have a really strong product. You are heading in a really good direction. Financially, you are growing leaps and bounds. Everything that you want, the Big 12 has it. If Brett Yormark is smart, and I believe that he is, he will not talk about expansion. He will not get off of that messaging. I need to hear Brett Yormark talk about how we are always keeping our eyes on opportunities, but we are focused on our membership. We are focused on the new 4 members we added. We are focused on continuing to grow the financial foundation of this conference.
Well, to that end, as a conference, are the head coaches, all on the same page, just generally speaking about, what you want to be saying about expansion or thoughts on that, or because that's going to happen. I mean, media day is a gauntlet of, hey, Mike Gundy, hey, Kyle Whittingham, hey, Sonny, Joey, what do you think of expansion? What do you see? Hey, Joey, are you going to be able to put out a 10-win season? Like it's really crucial that we don't get any type of bad answers, if you will, or answers that stir the pot. Like Mike Gundy needs to keep his ass in line and just play the company slogan, if you will.
It's remarkable the free pass that Okie like gets. I mean, it is. At what point do we, as a fan base, hold Oklahoma State accountable for the plateau that they Oklahoma State put themselves on?
And seemingly don't acknowledge,
because I'm tired of the messaging that Oklahoma State is a national power. You're not. I'm tired of that. I'm tired of the ignorance that Oklahoma State puts itself forward with without recognizing the fact you weren't forced into Oklahoma's shadow. Oklahoma State willingly lived in the shadow of Oklahoma, who blocked the bright lights from Stillwater.
And by the way, I'd just like to point out, that's a football exclusive thing. That's a Mike Gundy thing, because if you're paying attention to other Oklahoma State sports, like they've been getting after Oklahoma. Like you look at what they did in softball this year. You look at several other sports. They are good in other sports besides football. So that's why I'm always consistently saying this is a Mike Gundy like thing. This is him not being aggressive, not playing offense with it. And it's crazy to me.
Being mediocre is just not good enough anymore in this league. I think you are fighting for your life on a game in, game out basis in the Big 12. And every week that you go out this year, and Oklahoma State's got big games on their schedule this year. Every week is a proving ground. You can't have the BS tough Saturday afternoon there.
Well, we went to Lavelle and it was an 8:00 game, and we couldn't get the job done.
What happens if Oklahoma State doesn't win the conference and go to the college football playoff? Nothing. Because Oklahoma State fan, as we have documented on this show, is fine with that. Oklahoma State fan is not going to be upset. Disappointed, sure, but they're disappointed every year. They're not going to be upset. There's no talk of Mike Gundy on a hot seat or a warm seat or anything but a nice, comfortable leather chair in the office.
Mm-hmm.
That's all it is. And I think it'll be very interesting to see how Oklahoma State performs this year. Because I think it is really important that Oklahoma State go to the college football playoff this year.
Yeah, I mean, the conference should be Utah, K-State, Oklahoma State. If Kansas decides to have a good season, and then I'd like to throw Texas Tech in there. But again, question marks around Joey. But ultimately, those three should be the dominant teams: K-State, Oklahoma State, and Utah. Those should be the three teams that should compete to win the conference. And if Okie Light, drop some games that they shouldn't drop, frankly, they're not going to be there. And I do think this question of are they a national brand? I don't even think it's a question anymore. I think you still have to prove that you are a national power.
Yeah, I again, and I know the comment section was all afoul about this yesterday again. I don't believe that this conference has a brand. And I think I can't remember who was in the group chat or in our members only chat, if arguing with me about the importance of Utah not winning the conference, because I think Utah is the best team in the conference. I think they're going to win the conference. I saw Phil Steele rank them like 24th secondary in the country. You put Cole Bishop in the second round of the NFL draft, and you're still one of the top 25 secondaries in the country. It's crazy to me. I think Utah is the best team in this conference. And if they win this conference and they go to the college football playoff as a conference champion, I think it's incredibly damaging to every one of those schools in Texas, certainly to Oklahoma State. If Oklahoma State doesn't get into the college football playoff, I don't want to hear about the brand, because I don't believe that this conference has a blue blood. I don't believe that this conference has a brand. I don't think there is a national brand in college football that currently resides in the Big 12. I don't. I love Kyle Whittingham. The Utah, and we talk about this every year. Utah flies under the radar. Nobody has the reason that the all hat, no cattle boys in the Big 12 don't respect Utah is because Utah has flown under the radar.
Mm-hmm.
Never mind that they won back-to-back conference championships and went to the Rose Bowl and arguably one of the best college football conferences in the country. Never mind any of that. Never mind that they routinely, win games they're not supposed to win. Like, never mind any of that. Nobody in the Big 12 will take their blinders off and recognize just how good of a program Kyle Whittingham has built and has consistently put forward at Utah.
Yeah, and all the haters want to say, oh, well, you can't win the Rose Bowl. You lost 2 years in a row, yada, yada, yada. And I'm just sitting here saying you shouldn't be running your mouth if you're not even in the conversation.
But it's not even that they're not in the conversation. You, again, Oklahoma State, whoever you want to point to, who in this conference has played games of that magnitude in any recent time? There's one. It's TCU.
Yeah, that's it.
TCU, that's it. And frankly, that was a one-hit wonder. That was a massive backslide last year. We'd have no idea what to expect. And you look at the changes at K-State, and with all due respect, how are you losing that much talent and you're still picked to be second in the conference?
With all due respect.
It's wild to me.
I mean, look, there's no question that the Big 12, and again, we need to get comfortable with the idea it's not fair to compare the Big 12 to the SEC or the Big 10. I don't think it's a fair comparison. Yes, they're both power conferences, but you got to understand there's differences there. There's differences financially. You're playing on two different stages. Like, I do think it's not exactly fair to play apples and apples with these two. But what I will say is that the SEC and the Big 10 have earned their way to being super deep conferences. They have won. They have pushed the quality up through the meat of the conference.
But why, and this is something we're going to disagree on, why is the Pac-12 not in existence?
It's got nothing to do with football, in my opinion. It's got everything to do with business.
They didn't put forward quality team. Oh, wait, they did. They didn't put teams in the playoff. Oh, wait, they did. They didn't have teams compete for the national champion. Oh, wait, they did. It has nothing to do with the on-field product.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with the fact that you had Washington playing for a national championship. It has nothing to do with the fact that Oregon's been one of the dominant teams in college football, that Utah's been one of the dominant teams in college football, that Oregon State has been one of the upstarts in college. You look at the football product, it doesn't matter what happened on the field. The Pac-12 no longer exists because of their arrogance and their inability to take a step forward. Why is the Big Ten where they are? Because they're the best football conference in the. Oh wait, they're not. They're the best basketball Not close. They're not. It has nothing to do with the on-field product. So when we talk about the SEC and the Big Ten, they're not where they are because they're the best football product or the best basketball product. They are where they are because they have the biggest brands. They are where they are because they have the biggest fan bases. And what did that translate to? $100 million per university in the Big Ten. That's why they are where they are. Why is the SEC where they are? Because they have routinely rated the Big 12, whether that is, look at all the Big 12 alumni that are not in the Big 12, look at Nebraska, who I think if they had their druthers and the money was the same, would rather be in the Big 12. Right? But you look at Colorado, left the Big 12, went to the Pac-12, came back to the Big 12 now. Right? You look at Texas A&M, Missouri. You look at Texas, Oklahoma. You look at all the universities that once were in this league that are not. They are fundamentally part of why the SEC and the Big Ten are as deep and as powerful as they are.
Yeah.
It's nothing to do with the on-field product. And again, I know this is an argument because the all hat, no cattle folks don't want to look at the fact that the Pac-12 was a football powerhouse on the field.
Yeah, and I don't know why that was such a foreign thing to say. I still to this day feel like people like get, get weird when you're like, yeah, hey, the Pac-12 was one of the best college football conferences in the country. I mean, I would have no problem. I would have no problem saying that, a top tier Pac-12 team on any given year, Washington, Oregon, Utah, any three of those teams on any given year could put up a hell of a fight, if not beat any of the top teams in the country. And I think, again, that was why it was such a shame the way the Ohio State-Utah game went in that Rose Bowl, because if Utah wins that, who the hell knows
that was
what
a
happens.
firefight.
Yeah, I mean, that was a hell of a game.
Well, we had a pig farmer, bro.
Yeah, and so then, then it's like, all right, that happens, the injury happens, doesn't work out for Utah. Okay, cool, whatever, Ohio State. But then, like, you look at the Big Ten and this whole Michigan situation this past year, like the Big Ten, it has never been a deep conference. You've never been as deep as the SEC. You've just been really good financially. So I don't know. I don't know what the Big 12 is supposed to do here outside of control what you can control, because ultimately the reality is, any way you slice it, the Big 10 and the SEC are making more money. They're deeper than you are. And, you have to become more competitive. You're doing that in basketball, but you got to have a way to force teams like Baylor and Tech and, these different programs that should be doing more to do more. It has to happen.
I think it's critical that the SEC win the national championship this year for their brand. I think if Ohio State, I don't know that I feel like I say it every day, that's the most talented roster we may have ever seen in the history of that football program at Ohio State. You got to get it out of them, right? I mean, they got to perform. But I think when you look at man for man, if Ohio State doesn't win the national championship this year, I don't know, how are you not disappointed? With that coaching staff, with that depth chart, how are you not disappointed? I think it's critically important that Texas or Georgia or Alabama or Lane Train win the national championship. I think the SEC has got to get back to winning.
Well, and I think that rivalry between Georgia and Bama has been so valuable for college football over the past, 7 years. Like, you think about, like, people got burned out on it. I got burned out on it. Like, it was Bama and Georgia every year, but now the Bama situation changed, obviously. And, and Nick is no longer the head coach. He's there. He's trying to help the program, but obviously it's Kalen DeBoer's team. And I think for the sake of the SEC and college football, the Crimson Tide need to be good, but I think that's why you went out and got Texas, because that was your insurance policy, damn well knowing Nick Saban was going to retire at some point.
Yeah, I just think you want to keep adding brands. I mean, and we're going to get into the ACC in a minute, but isn't this why you're chasing Florida State? If you're the SEC, you make sure, because notice Greg Sankey, his tune changed, right? He went from we're focused on our 16 to, we're keeping an eye on it. That's why his tune changed. But as far as the Big 12 goes, dude, I'm telling you, you got to figure out who's that bell cow. Who's the one you're going to hitch your wagon to? Because I think if you don't have every football program doing everything it can do to win every single game, and again, I point to Waco. It's inexplicable to me that a program with the history and recent history of quality talent with wins, that you kept Dave Aranda.
They've lost themselves. There's no question about it.
I am so pissed about that. Where are we from? How did we go from the Rule era to whatever that shit show is now? And then you make the decision to continue forward on your current trajectory. Oh, but we'll fire the staff. We'll make changes. Well, come on, guy. Like, Baylor's that university that has the brand power to be a blue blood, and yet they're not. They're not. That's a basketball school, period.
100%.
Until you show me something. And again, I think Baldy's going to have to get whacked after this season, because I have no idea we can all look at projections, and this is what I say about the top of the conference as well. We can all look at projections. You better go out and you better win games. if you're Dave Aranda, because you are on. Is this a golden parachute? Is this a
Yeah, you're on a hey, you're getting paid too much, so we're not willing to buy you out territory, and
it's
that
wild.
quickly goes away. Without knowing how many years he has left off the top of my head, that goes away once you have, 3 years left, 2 years left on the deal, where they can get into a place where, I would venture a guess that once you're under 25 mil, 20 mil, you're probably going to buy him out. I would guess you're not Texas A&Ming him.
I think, and I guess I will just continue to be the only one who thinks this. I think Dave Aranda is not a power program head coach. I think Dave Aranda is a lovely defensive coordinator, and I would hire him tomorrow to lead my defense at any university in this country.
Yeah, him and Chip Kelly can hang out, right? I mean, there's a group of guys in college football who should be coordinators on their given side of the ball and should not be head coaches. And, I think guys like Dave, Dave is notorious. I mean, last year at Big-12 Media Day at Jerry World, Dave is notorious for not being a big personality, for just kind of going through the motions and doing what he's required to do. And when you do what you're required to do as a head coach, you don't really win. You have to love what you do. You have to go above and beyond what you're asked to do to have success, especially in today's climate. Like, imagine imagine being a Power 4 program, looking at Dave Aranda to be your head coach in today's environment, in the NIL portal era. There's not a chance in hell I'm hiring him to be my head coach. And so that's why I say Baylor's lost their way a bit. There's no way, even when you were looking at hiring him, you should have.
I would agree. His numbers were not elite at LSU, but how long ago does it feel like that Sugar Bowl was? I mean,
yeah,
that feels like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many people recognize how bad Baylor has been. They were 2-7 last year. And that is coming off of a 4-5 campaign. You went from 2-7 in his first year to 7-2 in the Sugar Bowl year. You understand he's 15-21 in conference as a head coach of Baylor. You're in 2 years where the trajectory is, you are nosediving. And I think people fall in love with 1 year. And again, I'm going to say the same thing about Joey McGuire. I'm going to say the same thing about if Sonny Dykes has another bad year. Boy, I think and maybe this is the best argument for the mullet. He consistently wins enough games to quell the mob.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's the hard part for Oklahoma State, because I do respect the opinion of, hey, in today's college football climate, it's valuable to be a 9-10 win team every year that doesn't go to the playoff. Like, on some level, from a business perspective, that's valuable, and I get that. But how much money are you not making by not going to the playoff? Not only at the school level, but at the conference level. And that's the thing that's difficult. So the problem is if you were to ever consider firing Mike Gundy, you damn well better have a better replacement than that. That's why he's still sitting there.
But again, it's Joey McGuire at Texas Tech.
Yeah, I mean, we had the same conversation about Dana Holgorsen last year.
But Joey McGuire's the sexy guy. Oh, he's a legendary high school coach. He's essentially, and I should look it up, but he's essentially a 500 coach at Texas Tech. And the losses, just go back to the Wyoming loss last year. Horrendous decision-making in game time. Horrendous. We've got to stop romanticizing coaches, because that's exactly what is killing you as a conference. And if you're a Baylor fan and you are not absolutely terrified of how bad you're going to be this year, if you are a Tech fan and you are not terrified about Joey McGuire, the high school legend, leading your program for what, a third year now. If you're a TCU fan and you are not absolutely worried about whether or not your run was a one-hit wonder, and if Sonny Dykes can build a program, if you are an Oklahoma State fan and you're just like, well, I mean, we win 8-9 games every year, and that's it.
I'm a man.
If you're not worried about the fact that as an Oklahoma State fan, you're irrelevant. As a Baylor fan, and I'm speaking about football, you're irrelevant. As a Texas Tech fan, you're irrelevant. You've got 4 universities coming in. Utah is clearly more relevant than anybody in this conference, especially in recent times.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You look at, obviously, Arizona State and Arizona. Those are not football schools right now.
But how is Arizona ranked? And I know it's a preseason ranking, but how are they ranked ahead of a lot of these schools we're talking about? Like,
if you
crazy.
think that Arizona State's going to finish last in this league, you're crazy. And then who's the 4th team that I haven't mentioned yet? What coach in this league is more relevant than Deion Sanders? What coach in this league has more pull than Deion Sanders nationally?
Well, nationally, probably none. But
not a single one.
I'd like to think that Kyle Whittingham could swing some power.
But my point is, it is, again, the only way you're going to change all these narratives is by winning games and going to the college football playoff and winning playoff games. You have to go and win. It's, again, the knock on Utah. Congratulations, you went to the Rose Bowl 2 years in a row and lost. Neat little trick you turned there. Right? It's great that you got there, but when you lose, it sucks. So we can go round and round about this. At the end of the day, I think this is a critical season for the Big-12. I think it is. I think this is arguably the most important year of Mike Gundy's tenure at Oklahoma State. I think Kyle Whittingham, I think if he wins the conference this year, my God, look out. I think that is critically important. Critically important. And without Texas and OU, and again, I know that I am the only one who thinks this, I think Texas is a massive loss for this conference.
You can't get away from that. I mean, even Oklahoma, once Lincoln left Oklahoma, that situation changed a little bit. I think people started doubting that program. And, I think last year they showed they were better than people thought they were. But, I mean, you're not, anytime you lose a national powerhouse type program, I guess a blue blood, like you're not better off for that. I don't care who you are.
Yeah. And we deal with it pretty much every week on this show about is Texas back, or you can hate Texas all you want and you can blame Texas all you want. You're a weaker league without them.
Yeah.
There's no way to even argue that Steve Sarkisian has built a powerhouse. He has built a talent powerhouse on the field and in the coaching offices there. He has an elite coaching staff. He has deep talent. Do you understand that Arch Manning could be the starting quarterback at just about any other university in this country? Any university in the Big-12, but not Texas. And let that sink in. It's crazy that people in this league do not seem to care. And this is my knock on Mike Gundy. Your lack of respect for the prominence and importance that Oklahoma and Texas represent is stunning to me. And you've not, little breaking news, you've not replaced Texas and Oklahoma.
Yeah, anybody who says that, because we always hear things like, hey, the Big-12 is better without Texas. What do you mean, dude? What do you mean your conference is better without a national powerhouse like that?
No, the one that I love the most that I always hear is, well, we're a better league without Texas. They're divisive.
The politics.
Get the fuck out of here.
What do you mean, dude?
If you are one of the people who think that this league is, and put whatever adjective you want, better, stronger,
more well off
without Texas, you're out of your mind. This is the ACC conversation. Oh, we're a better league without Florida State. Fuck out of here, because you are not.
Yeah.
You are not. You don't let powerhouse football programs, coincidentally, a really good basketball program at Texas as well, really good stick and ball sports at Texas as well. You don't let that walk out the door and then be like, fuck them. We're stronger with that. No, you're not. We're better without. No, you're not. We're more stable with that. No, you're not. You're not. Because you can just check the box. This version of Texas football is going to the playoff pretty much every year. Not from the Big 12, but from the SEC.
Yeah.
That's one of the 4 best teams. Now, year in and year out, you've got to earn it in that league. I think we all agree with that. But the idea, and I think this is something that we're going to hear about all day today and tomorrow. And we're going to talk about this leading up to fall camp. This question of, is this league, well, are we strong? We're stronger without Texas. No, you're not. No, you're not.
What you should be saying is you're not stronger and you need your schools in the conference to play better football. Like, that's what you should be saying. This we're better without Texas crap is the same crap that Oklahoma State's saying that they're a national power when they're not. It's the same thing, dude. And at some point, like Baylor fan or Tech fan or whoever you want to point to, you have to accept the fact it's time to start winning games. It's time to actually start pulling your weight in the conference, because the truth is Texas has been pulling this conference along for, however long.
And what? They hadn't won a conference championship in how long?
Like, come on.
And this is your argument with Stanford. Well, bro, what have you won lately? Texas is that brand. And my feeling is Michigan, Ohio State, Bama, Georgia now. Like, look at Bama versus Ole Miss.
Mm-hmm.
If Ole Miss misses a bowl game, and they're irrelevant. If Bama doesn't go to a bowl game, it's an incredibly huge story.
Oh.
If Georgia, if Oregon, if Ohio State, when Michigan, if those teams flounder, it's a huge story. You're talking about a guy in Ryan Day, Lloyd Carr incarnate. Lloyd's not dead yet, I don't think. But Lloyd Carr incarnate at Ohio State, who is recruiting his ass off, and it's not good enough. If Ryan Day doesn't win a national championship this year, I believe there's a chance his job's in jeopardy.